Did critics think Waitress in the West End was a recipe for success? What's on stage? Great seats, great prices, great extras. Get exclusive access to priority on sales and special offers, plus never miss a sippy out on the biggest stories from the West End, off West End and beyond. By signing up, you are confirming you are 16 or over. Waitress is an odd concoction, you just like one of the pies its heroine bakes. To sum up the contradictions of her life, it takes its wild ingredients and mixes them together to make a strangely satisfying and charming show. Katharine McPhee is undoubtedly one of the reasons to go to see Waitress. Her pure, while Sarah Bareilles may not have Sondheim and X27's sophistication as a lyricist, she manages to write songs about waiting for a pregnancy test, not wanting a baby, abusive husbands, and messy love lives with some style. All in all, Waitress is a treat. You can buy the recipe. Initially, the show struck me as raucous and improbable. Bareilles and the performances, in Diane Paulus and X27's lively production, are very much part of the show and X27's appeal. Katharine McPhee, a show that has a fair share of schlock but a genuinely warm heart. This musical took me by surprise. I expected something much less touching, gritty and moving. It has hard not. This is one for the XX chromosome brigade, a grown-up Legally Blonde. The male characters, what a crew they are. There is not a weak. Most of the pies in Diane Paulus and X27's Broadway conquering show are allegorical. Their lurid lists of ingredients are flights of fancy in the mind of Katharine McPhee and X27's titular heroine Jenna, a pie-making prodigy who dreams of escaping her abusive marriage. Adapted from Adrian Shelley and X27's cult 2007 indie flick of the same name, Waitress is a moving musical full of flawed, morally compromised characters of the sort you so rarely get in this type of glossy Broadway show. Everyone, but then there an X27's also the other Waitress. The Silly Waitress. This is both a rom-com set in the workplace and a feminist drama in which the protagonist makes painful progress to the belatedly assertive moment when she boots out her smugly abusive husband. He takes it for granted that her tips belong to him and seizes automatic control of them as if he were her pimp. Admittedly, there are moments of discomfort, but it says a lot for the fast sass and wonderful take-it-or-leave-it silliness and the occasional sugar-free sequences in Jessie Nelson and X27's deft book that the spot-on cast in Diane Paulus and X27's production mostly managed to give these elisions an elating good humor and humanity. The songs grew on me. They are in a pop. On top of that is the music by the many times Grammy-nominated singer-songwriter Sarah Bareilles. Perfectly constructed pop songs with a conversational feel, full of piano-driven riffs and jam-packed with baking metaphors. Bareilles is in fact there in X27's a very fine line between the moments when Katharine McPhee and X27's performance conjures a Jenna whose life has pulled her inside of herself, you a patient, forbearing, passive woman, full of restraint, you, and sliding into bits where she just comes across as blank and expressionless. Paulus very skillfully directs the scenes with husband Earl Peter Hanna. The thread of violence, the ending is conveniently swift and certain, resolving many its problems with a dusting of sugar. But the show is never
raindrop, drop top smoking, no cooking the hot pot. Fucking on your bitch, yeah, that. Looking up, open the park,